Hey guys, this is Jay Calderon with Jay Unboxing here giving you a personal prediction for Stephen Fulton versus Brandon Figueroa. And as always, this is just my take. Your prediction can be left down in the comments section below. Would love to hear them all. Just a bit of a disclaimer as well. I am a little bit under the weather, if you can probably tell by my even more than normal monstrous voice. Apologize for that in advance, just giving you guys kind of a heads up there. I'm totally fine, it's okay, but yeah, for what it's worth, there's that. Little bit of fight info here. We have Stephen Fulton versus Brandon Figueroa in a partial unification of the junior featherweight division. This fight will be taking place at the Park Theater, Las Vegas, Nevada, with Showtime airing the event. This is for Fulton's WBA title and Figueroa's WBC title. And this is a very interesting fight to me. It's one of those fights that kind of, to me, screams pick'em. A lot of times you can find those fights where you have a champion versus a champion. Maybe they're even undefeated like these two fighters are themselves, but you do get the sense that one is kind of picking up a title and the other is just in there as kind of a no hope or perhaps just passing along the gold. In this case, not so much in my opinion. I think both are going to have to work for it, whoever might win this fight. The odds might be a little wider than even I would suggest. I think they should both be pretty close to about even money. Not exactly. I think Fulton should probably have a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt here, but we'll get into that a little bit later. In any event, I'm really amped up for this fight. I think it's going to be a very good fight with styles that clash very, very well. And as we get into the breakdown, we'll see how that works out. So, without much more hesitation, let's get into it. Starting with Fulton here. For Fulton to win, I think he needs to keep the fight on the outside. He's actually a decent inside fighter, but I don't necessarily think that against Figueroa that's going to be to his advantage. He's going to want to use his dimensions, use his length, and his boxing ability to make Figueroa pay as he's trying to come in, and he's going to do that by using a steady, crisp power jab and then making him pay with the power shot behind it. Very simple stuff. It doesn't have to be too complex. Just use that jab, keep him at a distance, make him pay when he's looking to come in and turn him. It's very simple stuff, but if he does it for the duration of the fight, I think he's going to have a lot of success against a guy like Figueroa, who A, can be hit, and B, is going to continue to come forward and get walked into those shots as long as Fulton's able to throw them. I would also say start some combos with straight right hands. As much as I think that jab will be successful for Fulton, it's going to be imperative of him, I believe, to switch it up and throw that right hand as a lead as well. It's something that against aggressive fighters can pay off very well because, number one, they're expecting the jab, and number two, when you put that power on them a little bit, it gives them some hesitation, and thus you, as the boxer, may be moving a bit more, a little bit of breathing room, and a little bit of a chance to catch your breath and just reset yourself as well. So throwing that right hand can catch him off guard and buy you some time as the fight progresses. And finally, don't back up in straight lines. While you might be the mover in this fight if you're Fulton, and I do think he will to some degree, you're not going to want to back up in such predictable straight lines. You do that against someone coming forward as aggressively as Figueroa, and it means that he's likely going to catch you with something at some point in the fight. Instead, unless you're setting some sort of trap where you're walking him into a shot, you're going to want to twist at the hips here and there, use your different angles, and escape out the sides. Backing up just leads you to eventually getting against the ropes or in the corner, and that's not something you're looking to do if you're Fulton. Instead, turn him. Hold him on the inside if you have to from time to time. Hit him with that left hook and then just keep moving. Whatever you have to do to get away, but backing up in straight lines is probably the last thing on the agenda. Now, for Figueroa to win, I think he needs to close the distance using angles. I think much like Fulton, neither of them wants to use exact straight lines. It just leaves them too open. But the obvious opposite directions would be here for Figueroa trying to come forward a bit more in this fight. He's going to want to close that distance using, some trickier foot movement. And he actually has some underrated foot movement because he can close the gap pretty well. Against Fulton, he's going to need to have that on display here. If he doesn't, he's going to be chasing, which we'll get into a little bit here as well. But close that distance using some angles. Again, does not have to be some, otherworldly like Alexander Usyk's type angles or anything like that. But he has to be able to add a little bit of nuance to his movement. And he can do that where he'll bend at the waist a little bit and throw the left hand as kind of a looping shot. And so it kind of corners you. He's going to need to do those kinds of things in this fight in order to really pin Fulton down and start putting some punishment on him. I would also say land the double left hook on the inside. It's a shot that I think he can land pretty well, especially because Fulton does tend to bend at the waist to his right side. And if Figueroa can get him pinned down at times and throw that double left hook, either both to the body and score, or once to the body and up top and kind of switch it up, that'll be a very successful punch for him, especially as the rounds progress. It's a shot that I think can land with quite a bit of success, as a matter of fact, especially if Fulton doesn't get away from bending so far to his right so often when he does get pinned. Fulton does have a tendency at times in fights when he does get pinned down or get pushed back to get into a bit of a defensive shell and not throw as much. That's when Figueroa needs to strike, because otherwise it's just a pit-for-pat boxing match, and I don't know if that necessarily favors Figueroa. And finally, as I alluded to earlier, cut off the ring, don't chase. If you're just going to follow him around and look to land shots and lunging yourself, you're going to get caught with something. While Fulton might not be the biggest puncher in the world, that double impact of you lunging in and him punching you will definitely pay dividends for him. So instead, again, use those angles. It has to be important that you're doing that. Make sure your foot placement is in the right spot, that your foot's on the outside when you're trying to push him to the other direction, so on and so forth. These sorts of things are going to be important in this fight, because if you're just chasing him, even if you inevitably catch up to him, even if he inevitably slows down, it might be too late in the fight, and Fulton might be too skilled a fighter for you to be able to do something like stop him or hurt him badly enough to sway the judges' scorecards in your direction that late in the fight. Now, this one can go either way for me in terms of my pick. It's a perfect battle of styles, and I think both have enough skills and vulnerabilities that will make for an exciting fight. I think it'll be pretty good, actually. Still, if I had to make a pick, I think Figueroa edges this one for me, though I'm 100% not surprised if I get this one wrong, to be perfectly honest. Nonetheless, I think Fulton starts well enough, but Brandon uses angles to get inside and make it more of a fight. Underrated footwork, as a matter of fact. And while I think Fulton likely has enough skill not to get blown away or knocked out or anything, I think he will survive the fight. Even win some rounds, I think the left hand of Figueroa to the head and the body will be enough to sway two of the judges in a relatively close fight. Figueroa via split decision. Now, the betting odds for this fight are, again, relatively close. I think they could be even a little closer, to be honest. You have Fulton as a favorite at minus 350, with Figueroa at a plus 260 for the underdog role. Again, this really kind of depends on what you're looking to bet on here. For me, I'm not super confident in either guy necessarily winning. I think this is probably their biggest and best fight to date, so it's always hard to make those bets. Based on my pick, plus 260 is not the worst odds. I would lay maybe a small to mid-sized bet on Brandon under those circumstances. If you're a Fulton backer, 350 seems a little high. That's why it's kind of hard to back your man in this particular case. Though, if you see some good round props or something like that, you might have something that entices you. But, 3-1 odds in a fight that I think is pretty close seems a little high for me. Of course, fight night could completely blow that out of the water and Fulton could run him right over. Who the hell knows? But for me, there's not a huge deal of value in a Fulton bet, just because even if he does win, you're making quite a bit of risk to get any kind of decent-sized return. In any event, my prediction record heading into the weekend is 40-15-4 with 13 exact. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, though. Would love to hear your thoughts, predictions, bets, so on and so forth. Also, in the description box will be a link to a piece that I wrote on Teofimo Lopez. Would be great if you guys gave that a read and clicked over to that as well. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and follow at jcalderon_JOB, and you can email me at junboxing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you there. Also, be sure to check out junboxing.com for schedule, results, betting odds, rankings, and more. And as always, until next time.